if you
I
don't,
think you get away with saying you don't like children more than saying you don't like dogs. Like,
I think you can.
Yeah,
I think if I went in,
he's right.
I think if I went into the room and said I don't like children, people are like, oh yeah, they're very loud, they're this or that. If I say I don't like dogs, people are like, what's wrong with you?
Okay, welcome back to the devoted podcast to George Foreman. Wait, do you do the clap thing first? Oh, sorry. I just love George Foreman. That's so funny that. Wow. Welcome back to Everything from Nothing, Ireland's most George Foreman-esque podcast. That's not going to make sense to anyone else watching this. It's a private joke, and yeah.
You're officially excluded.
That's what it always feels like when you're watching those things. Like, you genuinely like, what? Like, I've seen like podcasts start before where you're like, oh, they say that, like they're laughing already, and you're like, yeah, no, you actually feel excluded. So we could explain the joke, but it's not
hilarious.
Yeah,
it's not. No,
it's not.
It's not really relevant either.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode, Alan. Yeah, it was an interesting conversation. What did you think about it?
Very good, yeah. Fair play to him.
Yeah. There we have it. Fair play to him. No, it was a lovely conversation. Today's guest we have, he's also like a host, and he's part of like everything we've been doing as well. And we already recorded this episode like 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah.
And then and then the quality went shit, and there was the pandemic. And no, it was probably all
somebody
stuff.
Forgot to press record, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was
Stephen Lice set. I mean, there was no, it wasn't. It was just the quality was like came out because we got new equipment. Anyway, yeah, like last week's guest, we talked about Alan, like more about a specific topic and stuff like that. Isn't really talked about, not in podcasts in Ireland anyway. Probably because there's not many podcasts in Ireland. But we talked to Alan about drug addiction and stuff like that. And like why we had Stevie on before and we're having him on again is because it's like an important conversation, and it's definitely not one I've actually ever seen any podcast anywhere talk about, like, so it'd be cool, but I'm sure there is. But anyway, Stevie's going to talk about like what it's like to, he's recently diagnosed as autistic. Is that correct? Yeah. And I don't know, when were you diagnosed?
Valentine's Day last year.
romantic.
That's when I got the results back. Like, so it was like 3 kind of, like, I went up by myself, and then my mom went up the next week, and then the 3rd week I got the diagnosis. So it was Valentine's Day when
that's mad.
I went up to Dublin, and they just handed me the thing.
That's funny. And you could only get it done in Dublin, was it?
No, I had a look around, because like if I went like on my medical card, I could have been waiting 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So I saved up to go privately, and I emailed, let's say, about 10 or 12 different places, because I kind of just had to do that to figure out, right, where am I going? And they just seemed the nicest when they got back to me.
Yeah.
So I just decided to go there, and they were like, she was like, the psychologist was lovely to deal with. Like, she kind of made sure I was comfortable and everything. So
especially dealing with that shit, you need to feel welcome and not just to be part of like, go into the waiting room and next. I'm sure there's bits like that, but even in comfortable places. But I don't know, when you're like finding out stuff like that's like, a big part of your life. You don't want it to be like number 46 next, like, like fucking, it's uncomfortable.
Like even just small things, like when I was there, like when I first went into the room, like she could see me just kind of keep looking out into the hallway at the radio, and she could tell like that was just distracting me. So like straight away she was like, "Oh, is that distracting you?" And I was like, "Oh no, it's fine. Like, you don't have to." She just got up and turned off the radio straight away and was like trying to accommodate me, like making sure I was comfortable.
Yeah.
Was it like a big decision for you even to go for testing, or like how did that process work? Because there's quite a lot at stake. Yeah,
it was like, see, it was kind of a few months, because it was like, there was the initial moment where I was like, I never would have thought I was autistic or on the spectrum or anything, like, because I don't know, I knew there was something, like, I just didn't feel the same, like, as other people, the way I process things, or I always knew I was really sensitive, but then I ended up looking up. Someone mentioned sensory problems one day, and I was like, "Oh, what's that? I've never heard of that." And then when I googled it, it was like really oddly specific things I do. So like, if it was just like really vague things, I probably wouldn't have actually thought I was autistic. But it was the fact that it was like, oh, you might have to count when you brush your teeth, or like you have to block out like strong lights, or like just all these different things. Like, so if I'm in a room and like the light, like, because I need strong light, but then if there's too much strong light, I just put a pillow on my head to block it out, and things like that. And it was just like it like said those things in detail on when I was looking up sensory problems. I was like, okay, no, that's too weird. I'm like taking every single box, like, so I just had to look into it, like.
And nobody had ever mentioned it to you before, like growing up and stuff, because to get diagnosed and even tested as an adult nowadays is less usual.
Yeah, it's just, I think part of the reason no one would have noticed is like generally, like from an academic point of view, I did fairly okay in school. Like I was always like in primary school especially, like I was like top of the class, like, and then like didn't really have to study. Like I was just, I didn't really study in secondary school either, but like it was just like because I didn't look like I was struggling from that point of view. I think that's why.
Yeah.
But like I was actually struggling. Like the fact that I couldn't actually sit down and study, or like I went months without doing homework, but I was able to just kind of, I had enough kind of, my memory was good enough to get me through. Yeah. So no one really noticed.
It's a part of like people not saying it as well. Like, to think about, like, because you're like, you're just, you know, you're just yourself and you're just being you and doing what you do normally, and you're just like, you know, like you do your own thing and stuff generally, like, but like it's a part of that because you aren't a hindrance to anyone and you were just being yourself. And someone's like, because if second, like a child is like being like completely in the way, or if a friend is being in the way, they like, people will be like, oh, I wonder, do they have this or do they have that? But is it just, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like,
because you were convenient to everybody.
yeah, as in people only want to figure out what's wrong with you when you're in their way.
When you create a problem, if you're under the radar, then
yeah, I think also because like when I was a kid, like people wouldn't have known as much about it as they do now.
Yeah.
So like even in the last like 20 years, it has changed a lot. Like the amount of people who kind of know something more about autism, like, is like, it is definitely growing.
You must know a lot about it now, like.
Oh, I did like a ridiculous amount of research just because. Wow. I know, just because like I've always struggled with different things and I can never find coping mechanisms. Like when I thought it was just like depression and anxiety and stuff like that, I try find like compensation techniques or coping techniques, and none of it ever really worked. And it was just like I always got really frustrated because I didn't understand why all these things were working for everyone, but they weren't working for me. Like, and but then it's just like I just kept looking into it more and more, and like it just really helped because like especially then after I got the diagnosis, it's like I don't know, it's like I don't know how to describe it, but like if you're trapped in a hole and you can't find the ladder, and then suddenly like you find the ladder when you get a diagnosis. So it's like you're not fully kind of, you don't have all the answers straight away, but you're at least going the right direction, rather than just kind of, you know.
Would you see other people now and you say, oh, he's definitely autistic now? You know what I mean?
It has happened a few times where there's certain people I would have met and I would be like,
that makes sense.
I'd see signs in it, but it's kind of, it's hard because like, my understanding for like diagnosis anyway is like, it's not so much like loads of people will present certain signs, but it's how they all come together and what effect they actually have on people. Like it's kind of like, isn't that like the output of that thing, like because like remember I think we were kind of talking about last time where like there's a lot of the stuff that you do and stuff that I actually do that I could, but the difference that we were kind of talking about is that like it won't like distress me if I don't do the thing. Isn't that like it's like it's like similar, like because like there's overlap on certain things as well. Like so there's some like kind of not full like exact same as OCD, but there'd be certain obsessive compulsive elements of autism. So and like with those kind of things, it's always a thing of like some people will be like, oh yeah, I have to do this thing, but it's like, yeah, like you said, like what happens if you don't do that thing? You're fine. Yeah. Whereas like if I don't count when I brush my teeth, like I wouldn't be able to brush my teeth, or if I can't see myself in the mirror. So like
it's the level of impact it has on your life and you as a person.
That's if you can't see yourself in the mirror when you're brushing your teeth, it's a problem, is it? Yeah,
so like if I was brushing my teeth and looking in the mirror and then someone needed to use the bathroom, so I had to get out of the bathroom, I just stopped brushing my teeth until I could go back into the bathroom. I wouldn't be able to stay brushing. Yeah. Because I can't see myself.
Yeah.
And the thing, like what you're describing is kind of like that spectrum thing. So like there's all sorts of traits along the spectrum. So you're looking for specific traits, like a whole stack of them.
Yeah.
That combine to impact somebody's life in like a clinically significant way.
Yeah.
So like individual things, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Is that something to do with order or something, or is it no?
I'm not sure. You see, like as well, there's like a triad of things. Like that's how they diagnose it. Like so, there's like 3 different categories. I can't think off the top of my head exactly what they are, but it's like so. It's like some people, like, cause like there's people out there that could just have the sensory type thing where like they can't stand certain type of lighting, or they can't stand certain times to touch, and like all these different sensory things. But like that might necessarily be like autism. There's like other things that would just have that, or like if people just have kind of like the, I don't know, like the kind of social or imagination sides of it as well, like the way they kind of process things, then that could be something else as well. But it's like the combination of the 3 things, like it's the triad of impairments, I think it's called.
The triad, like, as in, is that like, so it's like using a triad instead of the spectrum? I getting like. No,
it's just just for diagnosis. So it's like the whole idea of like it would be really helpful if I could think of the 3 things.
It's if you have like the issues in all 3 areas coming together, then it like that's kind of diagnostic.
Okay.
But it's like I remember someone describing before, like with spectrum, it's like they used to like with autism, like people used to use words like high functioning and low function, but they don't like to use that anymore, because if someone is high function, before it would kind of seem like people go, oh well, you don't have like bad autism, so you're fine, you know. So it's like, but just because people would appear high function, like you could like you could manage to know how to mask and know how to socialize with people, but your sensory processing could be like awful, or like all these other things. So like someone said to me before, it's almost like, imagine like looking at like a mixing desk and you have like all your faders. That's your spectrum, and like so each person you meet will have like their faders completely different, but like they're all coming from the same categories.
That makes way more sense to me, because I've always like, even when we're talking about that again, like in the spectrum in any degree or about anything has always kind of confused me, because like until you've put it like that, because I was always like, so like someone falls, so there's one extreme or there's the other extreme, and you're somewhere along it, and I kind of do get that. I prefer that to either being black or white anyway. Like I think that's better regardless. But it did always confuse me to say even when you were saying like to try, I know it's something else, but like I pictured a triangle. I was like, there's something about that makes me, you know, like if you're, I don't know if you do Photoshop or anything like that, but you've like a color wheel and like just this like either spherical or something like that, where it's not just one direction, because that's what the spectrum always confused about me, is like how you can, because to say you fall in the spectrum is like, if you look at it in like 2D world, like it's very limited, a 2D world, and so is like a spectrum is like a line. But like saying what you're saying, like gives it this whole like, it's a spectrum like where the crossfaders are all on 0, but now you have like this can go here, and that to me makes more sense, because like that's the truth for me. My perspective of life is like, everything is way more flexible and not so like.
What other things can you have, like, apart from sensory stuff, like, or whatever?
So like social things is like a big part of it then as well. So it's like kind of, there's different things people would be affected by. Like some people, they have trouble with like irony and sarcasm and stuff. So someone could say something as a joke, and you'll go, "Oh, is that true?" And then they're like, "Oh no, I was joking." Like, because like I find it myself, like if people use like an obviously sarcastic tone, I'm fine. Or if someone says something like genuinely serious, like I'm not as bad for it as I used to be, but like, because you kind of learn, because you're good at patterns, like you kind of learn how to figure things out. It's like, it's strange, but like there's a lot of like social things that people would struggle with, or like kind of a lot of people on the spectrum have trouble like kind of making friends in school, or like some people on the spectrum don't even show interest in like wanting to make friends, like depending on where they fall on the spectrum, like. So, because like there's like a thing for like a lot of kids. I think one of the things they look for is like how well you play with other kids. So like a lot of people on the spectrum, it'd be like if you had a group of kids, a kid on the spectrum might be playing with the kids, but they're not really. They're playing beside the kids.
Okay.
So it's like they're kind of involved, but when you actually look at it, they're not actually really immersed in it. They're just, you can see they're kind of just on the outside trying to kind of play, but they're not really able to.
There's the routine and things like that, like the sort of disruption of routine and structure. That's quite a big aspect for a lot of people. Yeah,
like for me with routine, it's not like when a lot of people think of like routine, they'll think, okay, 9 o'clock do this, 9:30 do this, like a timetable. But for me, like the whole routine and order thing, it's more like, to other people it probably seems like more chaotic, but to me it makes sense. So it's like just little things, like even if I wasn't wearing this hat today, if I was about to leave the house and I didn't know where this hat was, I wouldn't leave the house until I knew where it was.
Yeah.
Even it doesn't matter whether I'm using it or not, or like my blue backpack, I need to know where that is.
Yeah.
Like even doesn't matter if I'm using it, I need to know. And like if I don't know where it is, I just go into panic mode and I can't leave the house until I know.
Yeah.
And like I could be like an hour late or something. Like I could miss a train just because I didn't know where that was.
Yeah.
So
I remember like just kind of like Haley's question, like something we because I know you well as well, like we're friends outside. Once the camera's off, we're still friends. And but like, you know, I've been in pubs and stuff a lot with you before. Like and like we've talked about this before. That's what I'm asking. But like is the experience of like, I don't know, what's different about like the experience in pubs and stuff? You were saying like isn't like because everyone, I personally anyway hate like pubs for like talking over and stuff like that. But is that like heightened for you? Like, I don't know what that's like, seems like a random question, but like, yeah, how do you think a pub might be different for you than like, I don't know, average pub goer?
I don't know. I think for me, you know, it's like the important thing about pub, like one of the reasons I always love Bowes as well is like it was really easy to kind of navigate between being in the smoking area, being in the actual pub, being beside the smoking area. Like it was kind of that's really important to me. So like if I'm sitting in the smoking area, if there's a lot of people, but it kind of depends on how intense the noise feels. Like if it doesn't feel that intense, I can sit there and I can just tune into a conversation or something like that. But like if it gets way too busy and kind of shouty, you'll notice I'll just get up and go inside. Yeah, because I just can't. I'll get to a certain point where I just like I can't handle it. Yeah, and like a cool way of describing it as well with that kind of sensory thing and how it works. Like because in college, I'm on a transition scheme thing. It's basically it's a thing just for people on the spectrum, and it's just like you meet someone who basically helps you transition into college life and helps you figure out like,
would this be someone who is on the spectrum as well, or is it like
she's trained as a occupational therapist, but she doesn't actually work as an occupational therapist in the college. She just specifically has this role of working with people on the spectrum.
I didn't know that was a thing.
But like she described it to me as like thinking of it as like a cup, and like so my sensory input is like filling up the cup. So like just trying to make sure to maintain that. So like if I was going to a pub and there was loads of people, if I make sure early in the day I don't talk to anyone, lights are low, you know, like very, very little sensory input, then I'm more likely to be okay when I go to that situation, because like it's almost like the cup hasn't any water in it yet, and then it starts to fill from that point, so the chances of it overflowing is less, if that makes sense.
That's really
that's
cool.
the way she explained it to me anyway. Like it's cool.
That does make loads of sense.
Oh yeah, it definitely does. Like because I found myself doing that, like where as soon as I start to feel anyway overwhelmed, like I'll turn a lamp on instead of lights, and like, or like if I'm around loads of people, I'll just kind of step out of the room for a while. And
yeah, that actually makes loads of sense. Why did she use a cup? Why not a glass? That confused me for a minute. I was just like, I don't know, something about a cup is really specific. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. I still get it. But yeah, that's funny. Did you see these new mugs? Yeah, they're really good.
She should have used one of these, really, shouldn't she?
It makes more sense. But like, so I've even noticed, like what you were saying about pubs, like I noticed like you before, like I don't know, like you'd be able to use that like as a positive thing, because I've seen before, like you'd be in a smoking area and it could be like 4 arguments at once, something small that like, because everyone's drunk, and you mightn't always be as drunk either, so like because everyone else is drunk, and then like they're all arguing over things, but Stevie, because he's able to like you were saying, like listening to different conversations and being able to tune into conversations, he'd just be like, he'd quietly be just like the superhero at night, and just be like, he just like say, you just say something, like you just say whatever they're arguing about, and you just say this one thing, and they're like, both of them are like, and then he'd go do the next one, and then I don't know, I've seen you do that before. It's really cool. That's impressive. Like
that's a really strange perspective to like. I wouldn't have felt
fires. Because man, like I don't know. I hate pub arguments because it's exactly like that. Like there's no one going to agree with anything.
I've definitely got into pub arguments as well, like myself. But
what about being in a band and all that? Does that not cause problems for you, know?
See, the weird thing is like with music, it's one of the things I like. One of the things I like about music is like it doesn't seem to actually affect kind of my sensory input. Wow. So it's like I think it's the fact that all of the noise is like coming together as opposed. So like if I'm on,
Yeah.
if I was gone to see a band, and like, you know, when like if you're seeing a band and like the music isn't that loud, like the people are louder in the pub than that, then I can't handle that. When the music is loud because it's all the one noise, and I can kind of tune into that, it's actually not as bad. I can't really explain it.
Just no, I definitely get it. I don't like, yeah.
And then as well, like a lot of, like whenever because I've mainly played bass at gigs, like, and whenever I did, I'd have the amp right beside me, so I'd be able to just focus on what the amp sounds like, and like I don't really get much sensory input from the rest of it.
Brilliant. When you were on the last time, like you we spoke about kind of like things that managing some of that anxiety and stuff around symptoms and stuff that you experienced, and you had a little thing that you used to help manage your sensory stuff.
You have it?
Because I thought this is really cool. Like this
brush,
is
it's just kind of
the thing. That's the thing. Finding Nemo, isn't it? There was Nemo.
I don't know. Did you see that?
I don't remember it. It's actually
because I thought this was really sound, because this is something that nobody else sees. Like it's just that, and it's helpful for you, and it's a really handy practical tip.
See, that's an example of like saying the same thing. Is like when I was saying earlier, it's like I'd love that. I'd like do that all day, but I don't need to do it. Like I really like sensory things where I just like I don't know. I'm really obsessed.
As it's not going to be weird that everybody's handing it around or anything like that.
No, I can sanitize it.
You can share, okay.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Well, like, no, it's just kind of, like, I don't use it all the time, but like it depends on like what I'm talking about or what I'm doing. Like,
would that like distract you from other kind of, like you do that, then you don't have to hear shit? Or, you know what I mean? Is that what the point of it is, or no? Or what? It's
I don't know. It's just kind of, see, because it's like,
is it like self-soothing? Is it one of those?
Yeah. And there's kind of like, because like I got a sensory profile done a while ago as well, where it's just kind of told me, because like when you get told you have sensory problems, it's like it's almost like that in itself is like a spectrum, because it's like, okay, well, you have to try to figure out what you do and don't like about your sensory things. Like, but one of the things is like sensory seeking. So like how much you like seek out certain sensory things.
Okay.
Or like, I think the ones that I'm really high up on though are like sensory avoidance. So it's like I have to avoid certain things. Like, so if someone was to like rub my hand like lightly like that, I just twitch.
Yeah.
Like, it's not bad me doing it to myself, because like, you know, it's different because that's not ticklish. But like if someone just kind of brushed off me, I just jump, and like I'm just not able for light touch at all, or like
I would as well, but it's not, again, it's like it's more of a fear of kidnapping than like,
those damn kidnappers.
But yeah, like the what I was gonna say was I can't remember what I was gonna. It was on the that's actually, I literally, my brain just disappeared, and I feel like it was.
Has it gone to thoughts of kidnapping now?
Yeah,
stuck
that's
in
what
your
happens
trauma.
when I talk about my hobbies. Do any of you have a question while I try and think of that?
I'm really interested in like that, like the testing process, because that as well can be like a pretty traumatic, drawn out thing, because it's not like you just go in and you just answer 10 questions and that's it.
Yeah, it was like so the first day I went in, and like
sorry, never mind.
the doctor, she just kind of introduced herself to me and stuff, like, and then she handed me a questionnaire and she left the room, and that kind of made me panic, because I was just like, sometimes I find questions really vague. Like, I'm exactly the kind of person who, like, even when I would have tried to get jobs and stuff, like, someone would be like, okay, do this, and then after they leave, I'd have 40 million questions.
Yeah.
And like, okay, they're not here now to answer these questions. So it's like, I did put like a star beside the questions that were really vague. Like, some of the questions were like things like, I'd rather be at a museum than a party, and like, I don't know, for me it was like, well, like, what kind of museum, what kind of party? Like,
exactly.
When they say party, is there like 4 people in a room and it's fairly quiet?
Yeah.
And when they say museum, is it like on a school day and there's kids everywhere screaming? Like, it's like
exactly. Yeah.
It really depends. Like, because I enjoy both. Like, or like, there's all these different things that were kind of vague.
But that's a skill that you straight away flick to that. Like, that's, I heard that an interview skill before. Could you make me a sandwich, please? Is one of these interview questions. How would you make me a sandwich?
How would
and like you the whole point was, well, do you want brown bread, white bread, what, you know?
Can we do it as a test? Like, is it something we can do now? Like,
No, well, like he's kind of more or less answered it. Like you come back with a load of questions to make sure that you do the right thing. Because most people say, you get a slice of bread and you put a bit of butter on it, then you put the ham in it, and there's your sandwich. But that's not the point. The point
I think he thought he was going to have to make you a sandwich, and how that was addressed.
But the point is that your thought process is quite good. Like,
yeah, but it's just it is in a way, but it's also not, because
I know.
It's like it's good in a way if it's like. If you were the kind of person who would think all those things, be able to map them out and come to a solution. But for me, it's more like, there's all these options. What do I do?
It depends on the job.
Overwhelming, like.
And it's, like if that's happening to you sometimes in certain situations, that's called being thorough in the world that we live in. But if it's happening to you all the time, it's exhausting. It's challenging.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like trying to make decisions of things, or like when certain things don't actually, it's slightly different thing. Like, where it's like, if things don't go exactly the way I kind of thought they would in my head, like even just something simple, like I went for food with Megan before, and in my head I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to get lasagna. We're sitting down and I'm going to get lasagna. And then when we went in there, they were like, oh, we don't have lasagna. And like the waitress had to come back to the table about 3 different times because I just couldn't decide, even though there was loads of things on the menu that I do like, because it suddenly became such a vague thing because I hadn't decided. We ended up just having to leave. Because I just couldn't. I just got really overwhelmed. I was like, I have to just go. We have to get food somewhere else. I can't.
Is that because you'd programmed all that in your head, or what you were going to do, or why?
Yeah, it's like because it's another thing about like being on the spectrum. Like, you don't really deal well with change. It's like the whole routine thing. It's not always a routine thing of, like I said, it doesn't have to be X, Y, Z.
It's like predictability of something.
Yeah, if you can't kind of predict on some level roughly what's good, like in certain situations, like situations that you do have control over, obviously, like it's
that, like, just going back to the whole testing thing, so like there was a whole pile of questions that you had to put like a little star by, and then were you able to ask the tester, how, for clarification on?
When she came back in, then I was just like, oh, like I didn't know how to answer this, like is it this or is it that and stuff. And she was just kind of explained a bit more to me, or helped me in kind of, I don't know, just I feel like they probably weren't as vague as I thought they were in my head, but like there's just, I can't remember most of the questions, but there was easily about 50 questions or so. So you can just imagine. But
that museum one and party question is a really good example for it, because I don't know how, unless you've never been to a party or museum and you've only seen them on movies, if you've experienced multiple parties and museums, I don't know if it's easy to answer that question. I can't answer it, like, because I don't know if I've experienced multiple museums. Yeah, definitely. I think. Well, actually, no. That's why it'd be hard for me, because because I've been some bad parties. Yeah.
But to take a shot in the dark, I'd go to the party, I think. I've been at more. But it could be a bad party.
Exactly.
I'd say museums.
I'd be like, I
think it is more likely that I'd have fun at a museum than a party.
Yeah.
Just because, like, there's a lot more reasons a party could just not be for me, whereas, like, unless the museum just has, like, really terrible art or something that I'm not interested in.
And then, sort of like, after that, you answered all of those questions, and then what was the next bit of the testing process?
Next bit, like, so on the same day after the questionnaire, then she was, like, basically, she had questions herself that she asked, and kind of about growing up and about different things I might have struggled with, and she just kind of took all that down, and that's what she would have eventually compiled into the report. So, like, when I read through the main body of my report, because it's like 10 or 12 pages long, like it's fairly detailed, like that's one of the things as well a lot of people have said to me since, because I've had to give that report to like people in college or different people just to so they're aware that I'm on the spectrum, like. But we're just kind of going through, how did this happen, or what was school like for you? What was this like? And just kind of getting as much information as possible so then she could assess it. And then, so that was like my part of it, like the questionnaire and answering her questions and giving her all that information. And then it was like my mom came up by herself. Well, my brother dropped her up because like it was up in Dublin anyway. But like, she kind of got asked questions then more so about my childhood. Just because like. Because it would have to be present during childhood, because like you can't just like wake up when you're 14 and you're autistic.
Yeah.
It presents as a child, so they have to make sure all of the kind of symptoms that I felt like I had were there from my mom's perspective as well, because otherwise it could just be because sometimes like you could go, oh, I do this, but you don't know, do you actually do that, or do you think you do that in your head?
That's really true. Yeah.
Or is it just like a habitual response to thing? It's not something that's
so it's like once you have like that second perspective and you're able to show, okay, look, this has happened for 20 years, like, so it's just even just like like one of the things my mom would have said was like, as a kid I used to communicate in like TV quotes a lot.
Right.
So so it's like I just answer people back in quotes from The Simpsons and stuff like that, just because I don't know.
That's amazing. I actually,
you want to do that?
No, I don't. But I just remember kids in school that did kind of do quote TV programs a lot. You know.
Do you mean communicate as in like that was like you do it for fun, the way people do it, or as in like that was your way that you knew that people could understand you or something?
I wouldn't remember because like that would have been when I was very young. But like,
really, that's very young. That's mad. I remember you saying that before, but I didn't know I was that young. I didn't know why I was. That's really mad. Well, you were saying like something, that thing that. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying, is there any positive sides of being autistic?
That's kind of a tough one to answer because like I can't really imagine what it's like to not.
Sure.
But it's like, I don't know. It's like, I wouldn't say there's necessarily positives. Like there would be certain things that I find easier, but it's like, by the end of the day, like it is like a disability, like which is something I still find weird saying because I have to get used to saying that because like there's nothing like. People still use the word disability like it's kind of like a taboo thing, like, oh, you're not disabled, sure, you're able to do this, like, but like loads of disabled people are able to do things, like that's not what disabled means. Like,
I know,
so it's like it just kind of means there's certain areas that I'll be good at and there's certain areas I'll be bad at, but there's like
so there is areas, there's definitely areas you're good at, like
like I suppose like puzzles and like numbers and patterns and stuff, like a lot of people on the spectrum find that easier, but then it's kind of it's hard to really say because like when you kind of if you're to balance the good and the bad, like you couldn't really because like for every good thing you'd find something else that's like I struggle with. So it's like
if you could take it away, if you could not have autism, like
I definitely wouldn't. I definitely would. Like I don't know. I just like no. I definitely wouldn't.
You'd keep it and still
I would keep
it.
Yeah.
Like it's like when I got the diagnosis, I didn't see it as like a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
I took it. It's probably like weirdly enough, it was like some of the best news I've ever had because it was just like I don't know. It's like if you've gone like 20 something years not knowing why you struggle with these things and just feeling like you're just kind of like, oh, I'm useless. Like why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Like or like. I don't know, even just simple things like it's like why is it that I could turn up to like a party and I can't just like settle down? Like sometimes I could turn up to a party and like leave after 10 minutes because I just can't and I get really irritated. I never understood why I got so irritated, whereas now it's like, oh, okay. So it's like it's so much easier to just kind of even in college, like all my lecturers know I'm on the spectrum, or like any of the people I've become close friends with like in college, I've like been able to tell them I'm autistic, like so just so I have that comfort of like if I do need to like if I needed to take this out or if I started doing like all this kind of stimming stuff, the people are kind of looking at me like what's going on, that they're like, oh no, that's fine, he'll be grand. And it's really nice that people are aware of it, like and
like from my perspective, like I've been around for a good few years and like I remember like up till like last like February when you or was it this February? Yeah, this February. Was it? Sorry.
February 2020. I would have got diagnosed. Yeah.
Oh wait, what the fuck? I got really confused.
21 now.
Yeah, it's a whole new year now.
That's confused me. Sorry. But yeah, then I remember though like coming up to that like there was like you were the sense of like uncertainty or not even that, not coming up to it. You were still like you coming up to it. It was after like you found out, and I remember meeting up with you, and you were kind of like pretty sure that it was, but you still didn't. But when I met you anyway, what I'm saying is like after you found out, it was just like this whole like other sense of like self in terms of like not like in terms of like everything was still you, like you still do all those things, but now there's less like I don't know, jittery-ness around it, like kind of like I don't know if that makes sense, but like you were just like it's like a sense of closure or whatever. Like I could feel that off you. I was like. Yeah, you definitely, you were still you and you might be still doing those things, but there wasn't a sense. It wasn't like didn't seem as distressing from my perspective.
Yeah, it's like there's not as much anxiety around the things I did as a result of being autistic because now I know.
Yeah,
so it's like, and it's not that it's like I'm not using autism as an excuse either. Like it's more like an explanation, and that's why I think it's really positive. So it's like if I can't do something, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, like I have autism, I struggle with this.
Yeah,
it's not like I'm saying, oh, I want an excuse to get out of this. It's like, no, I just want to provide you with more information so that I can get through this.
Yeah.
And it's like, I find that really helpful. Like, even if I'm on the phone to people, like, so when I was trying to navigate through Susie and stuff for college, like, I'd always just, like, explain that to them just so it's like, look, I don't want you just thinking I'm being difficult if I ask you 40 million questions.
Yeah.
It's just I need to make sure I get the information I need going forward, otherwise I'm going to...
So it kind of, like, it does make you feel a bit more sort of comfortable or confident in yourself.
Yeah.
And your presentation of yourself.
100%. Like, I feel so much more kind of confident in, like...
Yeah.
Just because, I know why.
Yeah, you know why.
Yeah, it's like when you don't know why, it's like anyone who's navigating like through the world with some kind of mental illness, and if they haven't been diagnosed, like, it's so difficult because, like, you don't know, is it this, is it that, do you just think it's this, like, where do you go, what do you do? What if you tell someone, if you go to a doctor and say, oh, I have depression, but it's not actually depression because you just think it is, but it's something else, and you have that whole anxiety around the illness on top of the actual anxiety of the illness because you don't know what it is. But once you know, it's so much easier to look for help. It's so much easier to, like, figure out actually find the right terms for what you do. Like, I wouldn't never known the word stimming, but, like, I always knew, like, I put my hands together and do all this kind of stuff for when I get really, like...
What's stimming? Sorry, that's, like...
Stimming is, like... Yeah, it's like... So, I don't know, you might know it sometimes, like, I could just stand there and do this. Okay. Sway my arms like this for, like, half an hour.
Yeah.
Or, like, I could just rock back and forth, or I do this with my hands. It's like... Sometimes it can happen... It's not always, like, a bad thing. Like, some people might think, oh, you're stressed. Like, but it's like... It does happen when people are, like, sensory overloaded or stressed, but it can also just happen when you're, like... From excitement.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like if you... I don't know, like, if you walked into a room and saw loads of people you hadn't seen in ages, you could just be like, oh my God, not even realize that, and, like, start doing that. Because it's just, like, dealing with that kind of extra information, that extra kind of... I don't know.
Yeah.
So you could look at, like, kind of... It's like that thing before where it's, like, kind of... Like anxiety and it's, like, kind of the polar opposite of, like, there's going to be, like, the good side of that. So it's, like...
Yeah.
Is there different types of stimming? Like, there's movement and verbal stimming, isn't there? So
yeah, like, so some people like verbal stimming. It could be like tics and stuff.
Yeah,
like where they might have to, like, make certain noises, or like I don't like I do it sometimes, but, like, when I get kind of, sometimes I'll just, like, randomly beatbox when I'm in a room just because I don't know, I just need to do something.
I have friends, I don't know if they're autistic or not, but they do kind of say the same phrase over and over again, like when they're excited. So I'm not sure.
Doesn't mean they're autistic.
No, I know it doesn't. But, like, when they're,
yeah, some people would do that.
They
but
say, like, kind of the same, just a kind of as a tick kind of a thing.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
I do that when I get burnt by an oven. I shout, "What?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?" That's why I shout when I get burnt. I go, "Hi, how are you?" But that's like a.
What's that?
Because so I can explain that though, like, more than like. So
Don't
before.
Explain.
Because it was before, now it's a muscle memory thing. Before, it was about welcoming the pain. I trained myself that anytime I would experience a brief moment of a sensual discomfort, I would say, "Hi, how are you?" as a reaction, like, welcome, like, "Hi, how are you?" Like, go away, and then it goes away real quick. But I did that so much that now, like, my reaction, if I get burned, it's more burned because that's more of an instantaneous thing. Where I'll go, "Hi, how are you?" and it's like, it feels like it's not a tick, but it's like it's a trained, like, muscle memory thing. So maybe that's what it is. It doesn't mean I'm autistic. It could be, like, so many. Just, like, there's loads of things. When you found out, I was just thinking. Question was, like, did you feel when you found out? Did you feel, like, a sense of, like, did you feel less alienated, like, from people around you?
Yeah, again, because like, it was, like, the whole thing of, because there was an explanation. So, like, because, like, I would have. Like, I'm not, like, I can be, some people think I'm, like, good at reading people in certain situations, or, like, when I get comfortable around people, I can be okay at reading them because, like, I pick up on patterns. But, like, a lot of the time when I was younger, like, I just felt like I kind of have friends, but, like, on an average day, I wouldn't be like, someone wouldn't be like, "Hey, Stevie, do you want to come over to my house?" So it was like, I'd have friends in a certain way, but, like, it didn't feel like I fully gelled in the way other people gelled with their friends. Yeah. So I did, like, I would have felt, like, alienated and kind of left out a little bit, like a lot of my life. And then when I found out I was autistic, it was like, oh, okay, this is like why I felt like that.
Connect to people easier then, like, not in connecting like an intimate way, just connect in a more like and more flow kind of in the conversation, like as you're saying, like gel, like.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit, but like at the same time, I still, because like on some level, like I mask when I'm around people, so like a lot of people won't see that I'm autistic, because like that's just kind of one of the things that you learn to do, where you just kind of learn how to kind of present as if you're not on the spectrum.
Sorry.
Well, it's like, oh, what was it? What was it then?
Sorry, that's my just fucking light. Just look at the window. I know. So, well, I moved.
You're saying about masking.
Sorry, the window is covered in furniture.
Masking. What was I saying about?
Like
they won't twig like
you don't show that you're like.
Oh yeah. So it's like, so like when I meet, like, so like sometimes like when I know people really well, I have that flow, and I don't have to think about anything. I don't feel like I'm masking. So like anyone who like I'm comfortable around has seen like 100% what I'm actually like. But when I meet new people, it's kind of like in my head, it's almost like a checklist of like, okay, these are the kind of jokes they make. This is the kind of thing they do. This is like this. And it's like trying to figure out all the patterns and figure out, okay, so say this, say that. It's like you're trying to find the rules of the situation.
Yeah.
And then
if you're relaxed, you don't give a shit, do you? Like,
but it is hard to relax. It's like when I first meet people, there will be those kind of like find the rules, figure out kind of even just figure out what kind of topics I should talk about, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then once I get comfortable with people, that kind of all disappears. But it's just.
And do you talk about mad shit? I don't know.
Just whatever comes into my head, like it's just like really. Cool. I don't know, the amount of times like really strange things just come into my head, like, or like just changing song lyrics. Like, even in college, like people were doing, what's the song? Do you know the song December 1963? Like, Oh What a Night.
Yeah.
They were doing that song, like, and like in my head, all I could keep singing was Oh Butter Knife, like, and I just had to tell people, and it was just nice that I was like comfortable enough around people that I had to be like, I need to get this out of my head, like, because it's going to keep looping in my head until I say this, like.
Yeah, I've actually always found like and I don't know, you've always been really, I don't know. Yeah, not worried about saying like creative thoughts, like very, like, like imaginative with stuff like that. I don't know. I've always found your thought process really creative or whatever. Like,
or like someone could say a word and I'd be like, oh, backwards, that's blah blah blah. And it's like, and like sometimes people would kind of like, I think when people first meet me, a lot of the time they're just kind of like, what? But then they just kind of get used to it. I don't know.
I think it's cool. I think as well, it's like it does. I think your thought process is so quick that. If it nearly feels like that, it's like something you already know, but it's just like in that example as well, that's more like it can come to you straight away and you say it straight away, whereas like, and it might seem like you talked about that before, where it's like, I don't know, you're just like an instantaneous thought process to where like, it's just like it's, I don't know, it's quick or whatever. The thing though you were saying about there a minute ago reminded me of like you were saying reading social situations and stuff like that. Apparently when you were saying the thing about Simpsons, I wondered that, because in my head it was like, well, like if the Simpsons said it, it's okay to say in society, because that's what society is. Like, it's based around society. Society was structured around the Simpsons, but not the other way around. But like,
I'm not fully sure, but I wonder if that is kind of why a lot of people on the spectrum do tend to just kind of quote things they hear on telly, because it's just like
it's familiarity.
It's kind of ready-made. You don't have to think about it. It's not even said, and
it's like trying to decipher between like, it's like, you know, if someone says a catchphrase on telly, you might instantly know. It's like, oh, that's just a catchphrase. You might go, oh, that's the thing people say, and then you just start saying it, and then
exactly.
In the real world, it might seem really odd, but like you don't understand why it's odd, because it wasn't odd on telly.
That's really true. Because it's not necessarily like, oh, I'm quoting it. Like, it's different thing quoting like a movie. It's just like, oh, like Leonardo DiCaprio is really cool. I wonder if I say what he says that people will think I am. It's more of like, oh, another human says that. Like, if I say that, then I'm doing the human thing.
It's just like a learned response. It's like, oh, it's like same as learning any phrase. Like you've just picked it up and you go, oh yeah, that's what I meant to say. But again, you get kind of more awareness about it, and you're like, okay, no, that is weird to say, and you kind of figure out why it's weird and why it's not weird. It's like, it is a lot of work, but at the same time, I do still kind of weirdly enjoy it. Yeah. Even if I do get really, really drained by social situations, and like even with like if I'm around loads of people, like even if it's people I like, I do just have to have loads of time to myself, and just kind of like, there's a thing I do, I call it like the comfort cave, because it's basically I lie down in the bed, put my knees up, and pull the blanket up over my head, and just lie there like that under the blanket, block out all the light, and it's just So that's one of the things I do, like after being around people for like a really long period of time.
To like regenerate or just to...
Yeah, to kind of like build my levels back up, I suppose.
Yeah, right.
I don't know how to describe it. But
I know what you mean. No, that's...
You just be completely drained after talking to people. As we like, a lot of introverts have that as well. It's not just people on the spectrum, but like...
Yeah. No, I definitely, like, I couldn't live without like that balance of... I would have thought, like, early on in my life, I would have said I was introverted, and then I said then the later part would have been extroverted, and now I definitely, like, I need to be like both, like, just because I don't know.
I think most people are ambiverts, like.
Yeah.
So
I think
Now you have like a lot more insight into like autism, and you've gotten comfortable with who you are in relation to it and the diagnosis and stuff. Would you ever be tempted to use it as an excuse for anything, to get out of something, to not do something, to play on it a little bit?
I don't think so. Like, I think I'd only use it as an excuse if it was genuinely something I couldn't do.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so if it was something that, like, there was no other way of me explaining to someone why I can't do something, like, if it's just something that I know I physically couldn't do, I can't really think of examples.
No, I think what you were saying earlier, talking about it, is just like, whether it's just being able to explain to people. But if I'm being honest, I don't know. I feel like I would probably, I don't know. I couldn't really think of an example where I would, though. I say I would, but like, because I obviously wouldn't if it was something heavy. But I can't think of something simple that I do it either. So I don't know.
Like, I don't think I would use it as an excuse, because even in like college and stuff, like if I'm in a class, if I feel overwhelmed, like, because like I got like a needs assessment, they kind of said it's basically a list of things to tell the lecturers, these are the things I might need.
Yeah.
And so if I get overwhelmed in the classroom, I am allowed to like get up and leave.
Yeah.
And like other people mightn't have that liberty without like a teacher shouting at them. But like I haven't used that. I haven't needed to, because I'm studying music and like I don't want to miss anything. Because like for some people, like studying harmony is like, oh, this is like really scary and I don't know what I'm doing. But like for me, it's like, even if I don't understand it, it's the most interesting thing in the world. Like, it's like music is like my special interest. So I don't think I will have to use that as an excuse. But like,
if someone invited you to a wedding or something and you didn't want to go, people you didn't really like,
that's a good one.
Could you pull it out the back then?
I suppose that is a good one, because like
that's the one.
Because like I don't really,
you don't like the people that much.
I don't really, as bad as it sounds, I don't really go to funerals a lot either. Like, I just churches make me really uncomfortable. I can't explain that.
Fair,
I don't know if it's the smell, the weird echo, the combination of everything.
History, there's a fair bit.
I always feel bad, because like if someone really needs me to be somewhere and they're like, look, I really want you to be there for support, then I can put up with it and I can kind of find coping mechanisms when I'm there.
Support, not sport. No.
For support.
Support at the funeral.
No one's asking me to go to a funeral for sport, like.
We're going to take the piss out of the autistic person.
I'm trying to explain.
I'm
trying to explain. I can't explain my thought process either. Like, so go on.
If I really had to go into a church for a wedding or funeral, if someone was like, no, I really want you there, then I can do it. But like, if it was solely my choice, if someone's like, right, it's up to you, do you want to go or not?
What if you have a gig in the church with the band? That'd be all right, no?
So, yeah, I have played music in a church before, and it is still uncomfortable, but it's not as bad. Okay. Like I've only played drums in a church, like a few times.
Cool. Can I ask you something about, like Stevey? He doesn't not like dogs. We said this like on every podcast that you've probably been on, which is like most of them.
So he likes dogs.
No, he doesn't mind dogs. He's neutral with dogs. But when I ask dogs, like, can you explain the first thing with dogs? Then I can ask the question.
Okay, dogs. It's not even just that, it's animals in general. Yeah. Which is a weird thing to say. They just make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So like,
he doesn't think they should all die.
No, it's like when I say to people I don't like dogs, I always have to explain. Look, it doesn't mean
I would. I was vegetarian for a while just to really make sure people understand.
It's like I wouldn't harm a dog. Like it's like I'm not like I don't actively hate dogs.
That's what people think.
Don't dedicate time to this. No.
I don't like sit in my room and think about dogs are shit. Like like it's just if a dog comes near me, I'll do this. it's the touch, it's the smell, it's the sound.
So
that's why I want.
No,
that's why I wanted to ask.
It's a very clear.
My dog now. I don't have a dog. The poor dog passed on, but he'd be mad now to lick your face. And
oh no, like I won't even pet dogs. Like as soon as a dog comes near me, I just do this, and someone's like, "Oh, get the dog away from Stevie!" Like everyone just knows.
But he'd still lick your face.
That's what I wanted to ask though. Is that like,
I wouldn't let
is that connected to that, like being on the?
Yeah, it's
definitely
from
sensory thing.
It's from all my kind of sensory stuff because like the amount of people like me who love dogs and like they say like I'll be like I just hate the smell of dogs. They're like dogs don't smell, like they're clean. Like I want, like, you know, they almost take it like I'm saying you don't wash your dogs, but it's like no, like, but to me I get a really intense smell around dogs.
They're not using Head and Shoulders and all the other. Like,
but you know, like it doesn't matter if people if people are taking care of their dogs and everything. It's just personally, that smell to me is really intense, and it's hard to explain that to people because like there are certain smells and tastes and textures and stuff that are really, really intense to me. Yeah, it's like even just like,
and especially because I think it brings me back to like what as well, like that's the thing where I forgot earlier was when you were asking focused control is what I wrote down as note to remind myself. But it was just like when Haley was asking you earlier, like about when you do things, and it reminds me back to like the thing with a dog coming in, like when you have like, isn't there like the unpredictability of a dog, or like, because if you have the focused control of like having a sensory thing, like it does like doing that thing because you have control of that and there's no external thing that can sort of like stop you from like touching something or to doing whatever it takes. Like, is a dog just a whole other level of unpredictability in terms of sensory? Yeah,
because like if someone comes in and someone's like a real huggy kind of person, or they're real
they're unpredictable.
I can say to them, I don't like hugs, and like, you know, you can communicate to a person. Because like even like a lot of people kind of would have noticed it with me as well, like because like in the friend group it would be a normal thing if someone would be going and like people would hug each other. Whereas like for me, like anytime someone go to hug me, like a few people pointed out to me that like I just kind of give a one-armed hug and it's kind of more like a tap. I'm not really comfortable with hugs with like most of the time. Like like if I had to hug someone for like a long period of time, I'd have to count because I just.
I'm not even trying to be funny now or anything, but like, if someone actually, like, if you like had a close enough connection with someone, not even connection, but a friendship with someone where you'd be comfortable like talking about that, if you had like agreed that your hugs would be like 5-6 seconds, would you? That
would help, like having that kind of, because it's like
communication.
It's like the same way of like kind of like just say like Hoovers and hairdryers. Like I'm not good with the sound of them. Yeah. So like if you were to turn a Hoover on now, I'd want to leave the room.
Yeah.
And like it's not just I'd want to. I'd basically need to, or I'd have to do this. Yeah. Like, but if I'm hoovering, if I'm using the hairdryer, it's like
I know.
Because I'm in control of it, and I can be like, okay, this is only going to happen until this is done. I have the clear thing in sight of, or like if I'm using a blender, because I'm counting in my head, like if I'm making like soup, like I know, right, I'm going to count to 15 because 15 seconds is how long I need to blend it for. So I'm in complete kind of, I know I'm limiting my sensory input to that 15 seconds. Yeah. Whereas like when someone else is doing it, I don't know. I have no idea how long it's going to go on for, and it just
and I think the hugs is a really interesting one because like for me as well, like unless it's like someone you're connected with, like when you hug someone, like there's like it feels like eternity if you don't know them and you're not like already connected with them or whatever. It's like, how long is this going to last? So like, for you, like that might just be like a whole other
I mean, I'm not autistic. I can't stand hugs. I had a complete blanket policy with my friends to say, don't touch me, don't hug me, don't like.
Who are these strangers you're hugging?
What was kissing someone like? Because like maybe it's like different if you haven't kissed, not strangers. What am I saying? Like
old people.
It sounds really weird saying strangers, but like at disco, like when I was younger, if I was like kissing a girl that was like, and you didn't really know them, it's like, oh, your friend, and you're like, oh, a friend asked you or whatever, and you're kissing them, like, because that like feels like eternity if you don't know them, and you're like, oh, this is like irrelevant. Like, have you ever had that experience kissing someone? Is that like a long time thing? Like, I don't know.
I don't know.
That's probably that's really like I don't know. It's really personal.
Specific.
It's very specific. Yeah. Just But if
I've never found kissing as bad for my sensory input as hugging. Really? If that makes sense. If that answers the question.
Because that's interesting.
Remember those little pet things, the digital things,
Tamagotchis?
Yeah.
Tamagotchis.
Did you mind them?
I don't think so. I don't think I ever.
Weren't they predictable though?
Yeah.
Did you like program them?
Are you asking him, did he mind one or did he mind that they existed?
Both.
Okay.
I don't know. I never really used them. I never saw the appeal because it just kind of
ridiculous.
Yeah, it just wasn't for me. It was just kind of.
Did you have one?
Do you think maybe if you'd had one for a period of time, it might have improved your response to dogs and cats?
No, because it is the sensory thing with animals. Like it is definitely the sensory thing with animals. Like it's like, and I do always feel bad because like so many people out there love animals obviously, and they love dogs, and like I don't want anyone to ever like feel bad or feel offended if I say, oh, I don't want to be around the dog, because it's not like I'm saying your dog is shit. Like I'm not like.
And by association, you're shit.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people just kind of. I always try to really explain it just so people understand that it's just.
I know
it's
if
a me
met
thing.
My dog, you would have liked it.
That's what everyone says.
Is that what you say?
Everyone is always like, if you meet my dog, it's different. Like my dog doesn't do this and it doesn't do that.
That's
it's
funny.
Just,
oh, you would have got on so well with Juki.
But like it is cool.
It changed your life.
Like even though like it would never work for me because I just can't be around dogs. Like it is also nice to see like people have that connection with a dog that like they're so confident in their connection with their dog that they will be like, look, no, you'd love my dog. Like it's nice that people do have that, but it's just not something I can personally experience.
And it's also dogs. There's only two things I think in life that I can think of that like people will transmute your words into hate. Like if you say I don't like cars, that's okay. If you say I don't like wheelie bins or I don't like airplanes, anything like that's okay. I don't like flying, I don't like traveling, that's okay. But if you say I don't like dogs or pizza, people would say you hate and despise. Like I think pizza and dogs are like the same thing. Like, and I can't think of anything else. Is there anything else? Oh, elderly people.
Children.
If you say I don't like no, actually I don't know. Children. If you don't,
I think you get away with saying you don't like children more than saying you don't like dogs. Like
I think you can.
I think if I went in,
he's right.
I think if I went into the room and said I don't like children, people are like, oh yeah, they're very loud, they're this or that. If I say I don't like dogs, people are like, what's wrong with you?
That's it. If you say I don't like children, they don't think you're saying I hate children. They just say okay. But if you say I don't like dogs, like they literally in their heads they hear I want to murder dogs.
Yeah, it's really strange. Like,
it is weird actually. I can't think of it now.
I don't really like cats though.
I think if I had to be around an animal, I could probably put up with a cat more than a dog.
Really? Wow.
I don't think I'd like to be around a cat, but like if
push away as well, like they're not like
they're a lot less kind of
intrusive.
Yeah.
What about goldfish? Little fish in a bowl.
Little fish.
I don't know. I don't know how. Like it just. Having goldfish just seems really pointless to me. I don't know. It just kind of.
Apologies to all the goldfish lovers.
Yeah,
it's just.
Boy, he's right.
Like to me, like if it brings joy to other people, like fair enough. That's great for them. Like I just mean for me personally, it's just I don't know. I prefer just not to have pets.
Yeah,
it's just.
I find it hard to like, and that's the thing. Like, there's probably definitely people out there that can connect it to goldfish or something, but. I don't know, because don't they only have like 3 seconds memory? Like, so
I don't think that's true. I think that's just. I think that's a thing people say to make themselves feel better about putting a goldfish in a thing.
And flushing it down the toilet when it's dead.
That's really interesting.
Like I think it does have some form of short memory, but I think the 3 second thing is. I think I looked into that before, and it's not true.
I don't. Yeah, because it's an old fact that fact's older than the technology needed to find that out. That's why I don't believe in it.
Yeah, true. Actually, I didn't think about that.
But like. Yeah, I know. I think we're going to finish up now. Is there anything else you want to say? Like, or bring on Hugh? So you didn't have a Tamagotchi? That was really
no. Did you?
No. What? What made you think of that question? Is an interesting.
It's like that. It would behave itself like it would respect your personal space.
Yeah, but they're still dependent on you. Like,
they are. They're very needy.
Yeah. Tamagotchis.
But I suppose the only.
Sponsored by Tamagotchi. We just spent.
I suppose the only thing is that creative. You're quite creative. Like that's probably not usual for autistic people, is it? Or maybe it is.
I think it varies. Though. Like again, come back to the whole thing of like because of the spectrum. Like whether you think of it as like I said, a group of faders, or even you mentioned like a color wheel. Like whatever way you like to think of the spectrum, we've tried to visualize it.
Yeah,
you're going to get different people being able to do different things and kind of the way it affects them. So it's like the whole creative thing. Like some people for sensory seeking, there's even these cool creative things they do with like autistic kids where you can learn how to make your own like scratch and sniff paintings. So like if you make your own scratch and sniff paint, but the stuff you use to give it the smell are the smells that your kid likes based on their sensory profile, then you can get them to paint, and they're like, oh look, and you get them to scratch it, they get the sensation of scratching it, and then they smell it, and they get that smell they like, and they start to associate that then, and it's a good way. I remember reading about it a while ago, they were doing it in like some sensory park somewhere in Ireland, and it was like a really, really cool idea to kind of bring out that creativity and kind of get them more comfortable with that. But like at the same time, it's like, like some autistic kids could finger paint and be like, oh, this is brilliant, they love the sensation, the feeling of the paint, and someone else could like touch the paint and have a meltdown. Like it's like it depends on where you sit on the spectrum, what you're doing.
Do you know famous autistic people like was Steve Jobs or any of them?
I'm not sure. There's a lot of people who are like theorized. There's one person I know, they found out they had Asperger's only because of a character they wrote on a show. Do you ever watch Community?
Yeah.
The guy who made that, Dan Harmon, like he
I know Dan Harmon.
Yeah, he makes Rick and Morty as well. Yeah. But he wrote the character
the Indian guy.
Abed,
he's
and like
brilliant.
when he first started the show, he felt like he related more to the main guy, like Joel McHale's character. I can't remember his name in the thing now, but as the seasons went on, he realized I really relate to Abed, and then loads of people started saying to him, "You realize like Abed is basically like." Autistic, like,
and he's
he didn't even necessarily mean to write him like that. It's just the way the character got wrote. He very like, cause I relate to a lot of things Abed does, and then Dan Harmon just kind of went, I do that, and then eventually he was like, I have Asperger's. Like he just kind of realized because of him writing that character.
Like, it's such a good portrayal of
what's Asperger's? Just a type of autism.
Well, they don't really use the term anymore now. The term they use, like what I was diagnosed with, is ASD, autism spectrum disorder. They used to use Asperger's for high functioning. And then they use autism for low function, but now they just have it all as autism spectrum disorder because it's more accurate to describe.
What do you mean by low and high functioning? Sorry, like as in,
low function, like so people who would be like non-verbal, or people who like need like constant care, or like people who.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like it could mean multiple different things, but they don't like to use those terms anymore, just because. Like people who are like high function still need some level of care and still need to do all these different things.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
Bill Gates, is he autistic? No.
I don't think so. I don't know.
Alan Turing, the guy that was involved in the breaking of the Enigma code, he's been one of the most famous cases of it. Yeah.
He was kind of invented coding or something, didn't he?
Yeah, he was very creative with his coding style.
Before he was killed for being gay.
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
He was chemically. Well, no, he was chemically castrated because he was homosexual.
Oh man.
Because he was openly homosexual.
Yeah, that's kind of what they did back then. It was really.
So you're allowed to be autistic, but you can't be gay.
And you kind
what the hell?
You win the
but even then, like,
they didn't know.
With autism years ago, like the way they treated it as well was really strange. Like, there's actually, I think I saw pictures years ago of like autistic people in like a mental ward just chained to radiators because they didn't know what to do with them. But someone said something to me really that I found really interesting lately. Like, it's hard to know whether it's true or not, but like in history where they talk about like kids being like kind of taken away and replaced by the fairies.
Oh yeah, changeling.
Like some people have wondered like, was that like autism or another condition like that? When the child started to develop those symptoms, people were like, that's not my child, because they developed symptoms they weren't expecting.
It's like devil possession and things like that.
It's all the same
seen as like
if you were anything outside, like if you that wasn't some stray person who was going to mass every Sunday and like. Yeah, you were taken by the devil. Like that was like if it was like if you acted away, even if you were good at painting, like they would like you were good at art and stuff. Like it's even that's what happened when Led Zeppelin started bringing out music. They said this is the devil, like because we don't understand it and we've never heard it before. And because we don't understand it, it's a power beyond us. Like nonsense, dirty. I know much forgiveness. To the
peace,
government of the 60s.
With you, Karen.
We're going to finish up anyway. Sound for coming on and doing it again. Sorry to do it again, but we had like sorry for like being distracted as well. Like I felt like really rude. I was just like the fucking own put up furniture. It was just really
blocked the light.
Confusing. I didn't know what was going on, but
that's purpose.
I would have been the same. Like before that got covered up when I first came in, the light was hitting me.
First episode.
Like one of the first. No, like just there when I first came in today. Like when before that got covered and the light was coming in, it was shining directly on my face. And I was like, I was happy someone said it before I did because I wouldn't have been able to. Have this conversation if that light was on my face.
It was a good 5 minutes where Owen was using his hand to block out the light there, so shout out to Owen.
I can't help but notice that when you came in you seemed quite chilled, and now you spent like the last half an hour like using your little
it's kind of But it's not like in kind of a bad way. It's like the thing I was saying, like we're
just
like,
nice.
stimming can be like kind of positive. From kind of excitement as well. So it's kind of the whole thing of
that's cool.
So it's nice to talk about all this kind of stuff because it's like a lot of the time it's just things I'm thinking in my head about autism. And it's
have you found it easy to talk about it, like since you had the diagnosis and stuff?
I think so, but like I've always like when I start to feel comfortable in a situation, I've always had that problem of I talk too much. I say everything that I think. You know
your bank account.
Like I will just like.
What's your PIN code?
Waffle and waffle and waffle, and I will say everything that comes into my head. So like with something like this, because I'm really comfortable and I know I'm on the spectrum, and it's like something that I'm not upset about, something that I'm like kind of really excited to kind of share.
Yeah.
Then I will just talk about it, and like that gets me really.
You talk really well about it. Like you're really able to put it across in a way that relates to kind of like you know a lot about the sort of logistics and practicalities of it, like having been through all the process, but like you talk really well on a personal level about it as well.
Yeah, you communicate well, like in terms of like, because I know there's times after you will say something where you're like, you kind of say out the question. I don't know if that makes sense, but it does. You really well communicate to those like who mightn't have or whatever. Thanks for clarifying that you weren't doing that for the stress, because someone might be watching that being like, oh, he's stressed, but like now people can, so you can come on our podcast. We're not actually stressed out. He said he's doing it because it's a lovely podcast and that you should come on. So if there's any reason to subscribe, it's because of that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming on again, and we'll see you next week. And hopefully the sun will have exploded, so it's not in our eyes. Because is that no? I hope the sun doesn't explode. I take that back. Right. See ya. Thanks. Bye.